Constitution, a true weapon of democracy. It stood the test of time, and in this movie we will be going over everything that you must know to defend liberty like our democratic forefathers.
This weapon was a classic in Helldivers 1, representing our Helldivers ceremonial rifle, not exactly made for the hardened battlefield of 2184, and more so a relic of the 1940s as it is modeled after the M1903 A3 Springfield. But just because it's an old gun doesn't necessarily mean it's a weak gun, right? And it's got the very first bayonet attachment on it as well, bringing a new dynamic to melee combat. So let's take a look at the Constitution's target effectiveness, technical specifications, and breakpoints to find out just how good it really is. As is the case with all my weapon breakdowns, all testing, thoughts, and opinions are based entirely on difficulty 10 Super Helldive, bringing you the best representation on how these weapons hold up in the super endgame. We are first going to be taking a look at the bayonet attachment, as I know that's what you guys are dying to know more about, I'm sure. The bayonet replaces your melee attack with a quick jabbing attack that deals 110 damage or 55 durable damage with an armor penetration level of 3. Notably, this is enough damage to one-shot kill both scavengers and troopers to their main body. But with the Peak Physique armor passive, which does buff the bayonet's damage, you can instead deal 165 damage or 82 durable, which is enough to kill both hunters through the body and pop the heads off of any variant of warrior in one jab. I played around with this feature a lot, and while the practical applications were limited against the automatons, I did have a lot of fun using it while recording this video. Against the Terminids, it feels actually quite substantial, being able to not only swat away any incoming hunters, but maintain a level of distance from them with a melee one-hit KO actually feels very good. Couple this with slicing the heads from the hunters, and a box of super stims, and for the briefest of moments, you will feel like you're playing Space Marines 2 against the Terminids. Don't you know I'm still standing, better than I ever did. Looking up the feeling like Overall, the bayonet itself would be an extremely popular and enjoyable addition to any weapon in the game, assuming it makes an appearance with weapon customization. Beyond just the fun factor, for the practical application of not needing to headshot automaton troopers for stealth takedowns would also go a long way all on its own. But the joy it will bring you every time you duel a berserker to the death will be priceless. As for the actual rifle itself, there is a ton that is unique about it, but nothing that is particularly great. It's an armor penetration level 3 rifle that deals 180 ballistic damage or 50 durable damage. This damage leaves a lot to be desired when Arrowhead has been pumping out weapons lately, dealing excess of 300 damage or even over 600 damage in the case of the crossbow. So it's a difficult sell to be certain when you consider not only is the damage leaving a lot to be desired, but the fire rate is also extremely low, thanks to it also being a bolt action rifle, leading to some of the lowest primary weapon DPS in the game. This factor is made even worse by the fact that it is reloaded one round at a time with a maximum internal magazine capacity of just 5 rounds. Normally, this isn't a problem for the pump action shotgun weapons due to their ability to reload in between each squeeze of the trigger for a pseudo infinite stream of lead down range. But unfortunately for the Constitution, this is not the case, as the initial chambering of the first round of the reload animation takes a full second plus half a second per round after for a maximum reload time of 3 seconds from empty, just to load 5 rounds. Due to the lag on that first round entering the rifle, it's not possible to load rounds in between shots, unlike, say, with the Punisher, Slugger, or Cookout, severely limiting your DPS and combat effectiveness even further. Topping it all off, this rifle also only has some very grisly looking iron sights to work with, making it relatively difficult to land distant shots compared to other marksman style rifles like the AMR or DCS. When it comes down to the firepower, the actual rifle part of the Constitution is unfortunately just weaker than the DCS in every way, even when it comes to the ammo economy, only having a maximum of 100 rounds at the start, which kind of sounds like a lot, but then you consider how the DCS even has 106. The one and only stat the Constitution can match with the Diligence Counter Sniper, funny enough, is the Stagger Force, which is 20 points. Just barely enough for some stagger on lighter enemies like hunters, but not quite enough to do more than flinch the tougher medium targets like devastators. The ergonomics are at least extremely responsive. Again, matching the handling of the diligence and the recoil is a non factor thanks to the slow bolt action fire rate. Overall, though, the Constitution's metrics leave a lot to be desired, paling in comparison to most other primary weapon options. However, this is by design. The Constitution, historically in the Helldivers universe, has never been a particularly strong weapon, as it's meant to represent your ceremony rifle, not meant for active combat, based on a relic of the Second World War. Using the Constitution is meant to be akin to a challenge run, like doing cadet loadout super hell dives. It's meant to feel like it's an accomplishment. You were able to succeed with it, and although the damage isn't anything impressive, it is still high enough to meet some pretty solid breakpoints in both factions. Plus, you have the utility of a bayonet, so let's take a look at those breakpoints and see what this thing can do, starting off with the automatons. Troopers go down easy enough in one headshot or body shot,
Mi bomba!
but they don't tend to engage you one at a time, and the fire rate definitely can make it difficult to keep up. With or without the peak physique passive, it's also worth mentioning that the bayonet does enough damage to take these guys down during stealth gameplay without alerting their allies on guard, and without needing a headshot like normal melee attacks. Overall, pretty okayish results to start off. Devastators pose the issue of skill to the Constitution. You can take them out in just one headshot, but you're dealing with some pretty clunky feeling irons at the end of the day. The stomach isn't bad, taking only 2 bullets, but the breastplate is a nightmare to kill through, soaking all 5 rounds before falling due to that medium armor and high durability. So, if you can get good at your head taps, you can actually make the Constitution feel pretty decent for this very common enemy, funny enough. Unless you decide to play like a psycho and use the bayonet to kill them, in which case, 4 stabs to their vulnerable stomach region without peak physique, or 3 with it. Berserkers are a tough customer, but relatively the same as the Devastators, resulting in 2 shots to go down through the center glowing stomach region, or 1 good headshot. Anything in between is basically a waste of ammo, likely to run your internal magazine dry, so precision is going to be key as you'd expect. Unless you try to bayonet them like a psycho, in which case 3 stabs will be required with peak physique, or 4 to the stomach without. Rocket Striders do not feel good for the Constitution. Quickest TTK we have is 3 hits to the crotch plate, which is the exact same number of shots the DCS would take, getting the job done quicker, and 1 more shot than the Senator takes as a sidearm. Definitely not recommending the Constitution be your main way of handling this very common adversary. Instead, opt for the Senator when necessary. Hulks cannot be damaged by the Constitution from the front, but can be taken out through their back weak point. Unfortunately, this takes 9 shots to make happen, which is a few too many to be realistic. However, if you have the Constitution for it, you can bring Hulk down through its back weak point with just the use of your trusty hole puncher fixed upon the barrel of the weapon in 12 jabs. Or, if running the peak physique passive, just 8 good stabs to the rear of the Hulk will have him explode. Wait. Alright, so this is where the good news on the Automaton front ends in its entirety. Tanks and cannon turrets cannot be damaged by the Constitution from the front, as you would expect, but the heatsink weak point is also a horror story for this weapon. Due to the vent meeting the Constitution's penetration level, and the horrifically low durable damage, it takes a staggering 24 rounds to destroy a cannon turret with this weapon. In comparison, you could be using the plasma purifier, for example, to destroy them in just 3 connections with this weak point, either from the front or back. The barrager is just as hopeless an endeavor due to the engine block below the artillery having the exact same stats as the upper annihilator and shredder weak point. So don't try to bring those down with it either. And yes, ... you can bayonet the tank's weak point to death, but just don't. Gunships are also going to be pretty hopeless for the Constitution, as even if you can get a line of fire on their back thrusters, which are slightly less durable, the minimum number of shots this can take is 9, also known as almost double your internal magazine size. Recommend bringing a support weapon answer such as the autocannon AMR, railgun, or anti-tank to combat this weakness when playing against the gunship patrol modifier. The factory strider is virtually impossible to bring down with the Constitution, but should you have the faith in managed democracy to pull this off, you can expect this to take 38 shots to one side of the underbelly doors to bring the behemoth down. Something General Brash himself would likely struggle with, instead opting to use his bare hands instead. This is going to bring us to the Terminids, which I have to admit are a lot more fun to combat with the Constitution due to them actually playing within range of your bayonet, which is absurdly fun to use against the faction, I have to say. Stimming yourself up and cleaving your way through hordes of Terminids was a lot of fun, so let's take a look at their breakpoints. Scavengers and their annoying flying cousins stand no chance against the might of the Constitution, falling to your choice of either bullet or blade in just one hit, whether you're running the peak physique passive or not. Recommend saving the ammo and reloading time when you can and stabbing away at these guys. Hunters go down in a shot to the body or head from the Constitution, which feels fine enough, but with such a long reload time and low internal magazine capacity, it does not feel like a very sufficient answer to the swarm. What will be likely much more popular to do, however, is running the peak physique passive, which brings the bayonet stab from a two-shot kill on the body down to a one-hit kill for hunters, allowing you to parry and jab your way through swarms of them as a result. Warriors in all variants lose their head to one bullet, forcing them into a death charge, which you can then stop with your bayonet if necessary before they bleed out on their own. With the peak physique passive, the bayonet also does enough damage to take their heads off in one jab, then finish them off for good with one more to the body, making it a very realistic answer as long as you manage to avoid being overwhelmed. Hive guards are bad news for the Constitution rifle, taking 3 shots to their head plate to bring down, or 2 should you hit their little mouths. The bayonet, on the other hand, can jab them down through the face in 4 hits without peak physique, or 3 hits with it, which is overall pretty workable solution. Alpha commanders are a tough target for the Constitution, soaking 3 bullets from the rifle to the head before entering a terminal bleed out death charge. The bayonet isn't particularly ideal either, due to this enemy actually being at a reach advantage over you and soaking up to 11 jabs without peak physique or 7 stabs with it. Stalkers, similar to the Devastators, propose the issue of skill to the Constitution, able to be taken down in one clean headshot from the rifle, but will otherwise soak 7 rounds, also known as more than you can load into your body. You're desperate or just a badass, you can also duel them to the death with your bayonet in 10 jabs without peak physique or 7 with it. Now, Shriekers will die in one shot from the Constitution, but for obvious reasons, you're not going to want to answer a swarm of these with a bolt action rifle. Hilariously, though, you can stab them as they swoop in on you to kill them as well, though. Not practical, but very cool, and something you are likely to see a video titled, Yes, the Constitution can do this, in your feed around this time that this is posted. Bile spewers can soak up to 3 headshots from the Constitution, making it a very poor choice for handling them, with the butt breakpoint being substantially worse due to its high durability. The bayonet can technically stab them to death through the head in 5 jabs or 3 with peak physique. At any rate, definitely avoid stabbing them in the butt, as that's likely to lead to explosive consequences. Hang on a minute. Chargers, yeah, I mean, you can kill them with the Constitution, but you definitely shouldn't unless you are 100% for funning it. Even the lightest, most basic charger is going to soak 13 rounds from the Constitution rifle to the ass and can take up to 15 jabs to the rear before exploding. With peak physique, it'll only take 10 stabs to get them to blow, however. Hang on a minute, who wrote this? Bile Titans are just a no. For those of you curious, you will need to fire 53 rounds into the exposed underside of the Titan to bring him down. So, just don't do this. You don't need to do this. I didn't need to do this. Nobody needs to do this. Impalers are also pretty unrealistic, but 16 rounds to the face will take them down using the Constitution. Unfortunately, the very odd hitbox is too high up to jab with your freedom sticker, and any kills with the bayonet are going to be completely unrealistic in nature, so at that point I can't really even give you a concise number. Basically, just don't do it. Alright, that about sums up everything you could want to know about the Constitution. Its strengths, its weaknesses, its more weaknesses, and above all, its weaknesses. But how good is it really? Well, in my opinion, the Constitution is a fun, challenge oriented weapon, not meant to be particularly strong, but a weapon veteran Helldivers can utilize to add some extra challenge to their matches and spice things up by limiting their options and arsenal. The bayonet itself on the weapon is also just incredibly fun and brings a lot of charm to the weapon that otherwise wouldn't have existed, making it actually quite viable against the Terminids. While the decent breakpoints in the skilled hands of a veteran can also make it a workable option against the automatons. Overall, this weapon is weak, and that's okay because it's extremely fun to utilize when you want to challenge yourself just so you can say that you could. Speaking of which, if this video gets 3,000 likes, I will be recruiting my fellow content creators Tick-Filet and Commissar Kai to do just that. We will perform the world's first Constitution Cadet Super Hell Dive against the Automatons, utilizing only the basic starting gear, plus the Constitution and the Helldivers 1 retro armor. Thanks for watching till the end. Have yourselves a wonderful day. I'll see you next time.
Yeah, I recommend getting out of there.
I can't. I'm stuck underneath the detector tower.
Oh. I didn't realize that was what ailed you.
Oh, I'm free! Thank you, Rocket Strider, my savior. Wait.
Just to be sure.
Come on. Go. Come on.
Oh, that's closer than I thought it was.
Throwing supply beacon!